chapter 4, verses 16 to 25. Kim karma kimakardeti kavayosyastra mohitaha tatte karma prabhakshyami yajñātva mokṣyate shubhat karmano yati bodhavyam bodhavyam ca vikarmanaha akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gatihi karmanya karmaya pashyet akarmani ca karmayaha sabuddhiman manusyeshu sayukta krishna karmakrit yasya sarve samarambhaha kama sankalpa varjitaha jnanamnidagdha karmanam tamahu panditam buddhaha tyaktva karma balasangam nisyatripto nirashrayah karmanya vipravrttopi naiva kinchit karoti saha nirashiryata chittatma tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvanapnoti kilbisham yadrichhalabha santushtaha vanvātīto vimatsaraha samasiddhāvasiddhau ca kritvāpi na nibadhyate gata sangasya muktasya jnānavastita cetasaha yajñāyācarata karma samagram pratidīyate brahmārpanam brahma havihi brahmāgnau brahmanāhutam brahmaiva tena gantavyam brahma karma samādhina daivameva pare yajñam yogina paryupāsate brahmāgnāva pare yajñam yajñenaivopajubbati.
The three types of action. Nitya karma, naimittika karma and vikarma. Vikarma is forbidden actions, prohibited actions. Who prohibits those actions? Those who are able to see the effect of it, they make a list and say don't do. When you say prohibited actions, somebody is saying don't do it. So somebody is saying do this, and that same person is saying don't do something else. And when they say do something and don't do something, it depends on their penetrative capacity. They are able to see the consequences of both, and then they say do this and don't do this. One way is we develop our penetrating capacity and understand it. Another way is till we get to that stage, follow that. Ignorance will not allow both. Ignorance will not allow you to do both. Number one, it will tell you to do that which suits you, you do that. what they say doesn't apply. What they say doesn't apply to me. Or we say what they say doesn't apply to modern times. In the it doesn't, because times have changed, technology has improved. Therefore, what they say doesn't apply now. Therefore, what happens? There is always a confusion between what has to be done and what has to be avoided. Again, there is always a human being has this confusion as to what has to be done and what has to be avoided. At a very high level of spiritual growth, you become the deciding factor. You don't take from anybody. You don't take this authority from anybody else. You decide it all by yourself. Why you decide by yourself is because what gives you the right to decide by yourself is because selfishness is eliminated. When selfishness is eliminated, you have the right to decide. Till that point, you have to take what somebody says. Now, what has happened is, especially when it comes to this Nitya Karma, Naimittika Karma and all that, I can decide for myself. The most ego-fulfilling thing is to say, I can decide for myself. I can decide for. And today what has happened is, everybody has started saying, I will decide for myself. For I know everything. And also all along he has been saying, forbidden actions, conscience and conviction. No. So this conscience, and we don't know what is that conscience, we don't know what is that conviction, we know only raga and dvesha. This raga and dvesha appears to be conscience and conviction, and I am following my conscience and conviction. Everybody deludes themselves. Those who come in contact with the knowledge also deludes themselves, because it is gahana karmano gati. The nature of action is impenetrable. Very difficult is to understand what has to be done as in Nitya Karma, as in Naimittika Karma, as in forbidden actions. There are certain general forbidden actions, universally applicable on a very general plane. Falsehood, hypocrisy, theft, adultery, violence, these are all prohibited under normal circumstances. When circumstances change, violence is not prohibited. In fact, violence becomes obligation. As in the Bhagavad Gita battlefield itself, where the 18 akshaunis, if you know the number of what 18 akshaunis is, you will be scared. 45 lakhs and odd human beings, not to take into consideration animal rights people. The horses and the elephants and all put together, the violence that happened in 18 days is in a way that we can't even imagine that. Violence. And one man, Krishna, standing there and saying, this violence has to happen. You ask him, this prohibited? No. He says, this is my obligatory duty. Therefore, violence becomes obligatory duty for everybody. You follow? At one level, we need to obey the command of the higher authority, because we are not able to understand the effects of the actions. The day you can understand the effects of your action, you become your own authority. karma and vikarma. Akarma is the inactive principle. Akarma is the self. That which enliven actions but doesn't participate in action. Without which action is not possible, but it doesn't do anything. That is akarma, self. God, Brahman. The example that is given is the catalyst in a chemical reaction. Without the catalyst, the reaction is not possible, but the catalyst doesn't undergo any change. Hydrogen and oxygen combines to form a molecule of water. Now, wherever you combine hydrogen and oxygen, water will not form. You know that, no? You need catalyst of. What is the catalyst that is needed for hydrogen and oxygen to become water molecule? Electricity. Only when electricity acts as the catalyst, hydrogen and oxygen turns into a molecule of water. But then, when we study, we don't say H2O plus electricity. We always say H2O only. Why? Because the catalyst is of no direct relevance to the molecule of water, and yet without it, it cannot happen. Similarly, without God, nothing can happen, and God doesn't do anything. In the dualistic aspect of action, the enlivening factor is non-dual. This is impenetrable to understand. Again I repeat, in the dualistic aspect of action, the non-dual aspect is the self. Action implies dual. Action implies two. There is the doer and the doing. Every aspect of life, the duality exists. Even in the highest form of bhakti, duality still exists. For there is somebody praying to somebody else. There is a duality. In and through the duality that is present, there is something that is non-dual, that is common to both. The karma, vikarma with discussing about karma and vikarma is better, sir, than discussing this akarma. Are you able to follow? Action implies dual. Everything in life is part of duality. Even in bhakti, what is present? The duality is present. What is the duality? The worshipper and the worshipped. In action also, the duality is present. The doer and the ideal. There are two things. So everything in life is determined by this duality, and that which is common to both is the non-dual principle, and that non-dual principle is akarma, the self. So when you look at action, you can look at the doer, and you look at the ideal, and then you can look at that which is common to both. What is that is common to both? The neutral, you can say neutral, you can say non-dual, you can say active principle, but what it means is, அதை பற்றி எது பேசினாலும் பழக்கம் தான். It boils down to that. Whichever word you can use and get a satisfaction that you have understood, but at the core what remains always? That is something that is always eluding the grasp, because it is anirvachaniya. It cannot be brought under any, since that cannot be brought under any description, it will always elude your grasp. Then why talk about that which is eluding your grasp? Then why even talk about it? Why can't we simply ignore it? That cannot be done. Why? Because if that akarma principle is not repeated again and again and again, involvement in the duality will happen. You can never transcend you will not be able to transcend the duality if this akarma is not repeatedly reminded. Otherwise what happens? Involvement in action. What is involvement in action? To put it very simply, most of the human beings, if not all human beings, don't ask for moksha, they ask for swarga. Even here, we don't ask for moksha, we ask for swarga. And in Kathopanishad, Yama offers Nachiketas the swarga. You go to swarga, Nachiketas. I will see, at least namakla enga poporom theriyadu. We know that we are going to go somewhere, but where we don't know. That is why if somebody is dead and gone, we give a solace to ourselves by saying they have gone to Swarga, Vaikuntha, Shivaloka or Naraka, depending upon your estimate. Depending upon your raga and dvesha towards that person. இவரெல்லாம் சொர்க்கத்துக்கு போறதுக்கெல்லாம் வாய்ப்பே கிடையாது. இவருக்கு சொர்க்கம் தான் கண்டிப்பா அப்படின்னா what does it mean? Depends on your raga and dvesha. But the truth is we really don't know. Yeah. In Kathopanishad, Yama tells Nachiketas, don't worry about this in the akarma, inactive principle pathina kelvila kekada. Don't worry, don't bother about these things. Or even gods are still searching for it. Even gods are confused about it, Nachiketas. Why do you want to? Avangalke mudiyadadallam, why are you trying? But one guarantee I will give you. I will ensure that you go to Swarga. Nachiketas says, I don't want Swarga. Nachiketas says, I don't want Swarga. And Yama doesn't leave a beautiful discussion between Yama and Nachiketas. Yama doesn't leave Nachiketas. Yama says, what do you know about Swarga that you say, I don't want? Are you able to follow? Nachiketas is asking questions to Yama. Yama is asking more penetrative questions to Nachiketas. So, Yama asked Nachiketas, what do you know about Swarga that you are saying? I don't want. And Nachiketas talks about Swarga. So, you hear the description of Swarga from Upanishad Pramanam, Upanishad authority. Nachiketas talks to Yama and then he says, I don't want that Swarga. And when Nachiketas says, I don't want that Swarga, Yama says, your adhikaritvam is getting established. But still I have one more doubt. And then he clears that also, whatever teaching is given. I started by saying, even here we all ask for Swarga only, very few ask for Moksha. What is the difference between Swarga and Moksha? What is Swarga? What is Swarga? Swarga is a life of two things. Swarga means a life of two things. In Swarga, two things doesn't happen. What are the two things? Death doesn't happen in. As you go, you will be there. That is Swarga. Supposing, if you go to Swarga at the age of 20, you will not increase to 21, 22, 23. You will be 20. Their status quo. Their status quo is maintained. That is the first thing in Swarga. The second thing about Swarga is no fear. Swarga is where there is no locks. You don't have to. I have to check whether she locked the house, and then I have to go and check whether it is locked again. Fear. Swarga is the place where there is no fear. Swarga is not what you are going to go after death. Swarga means a thing that you want to experience. What is it that you want to experience in life? A better life. Better life compared to what you are going through now. Mokshala appuram paathukalam sir. In the Vedantic knowledge which in life becomes happy and better. No, I will know how to handle my mother-in-law. I will know how to handle my boss. I will know how to handle all this. Idallam varkum first. Mokshala we'll see. Mokshala we'll see later. That talk will be more interesting than moksha. Why? Why a better life is always more interesting than moksha? You do not know the consequences of what you are doing. That is why you want Swarga. If you understand the consequences of what you are doing, you will not want a better life. You will want to only transcend. You follow? It has got nothing to do with knowing the other. In life, you always start without. This is the most frightening aspect of life. You start in life without knowing what it is. Halfway down the line, you understand that you can never know. So you start with not knowing. Halfway down, you understand that you can never know anything. Then comes the suffocation for moksha. As in, very simple. When you go to school, you can never know. Why no? But the parents know, no sir. If the parents have known, they should not send the children to school. Because looking at themselves, they went to the same school, they went to the same university, they got into the career. Looking at themselves, they know nothing has happened to them. Why will they want to? And then, so you start something as an education without knowing actually. You have a hope. That is what Swarga is. You have a hope. What is the hope? The hope of a better life. Better life ku possibility inganna it is okay. Somewhere else na kuda it is okay. But what is always asked for? Swarga as in a better life. Swarga varno naraka prabhupada. Happiness must come, dukkha should not come. Pleasure must come, pain, adha swarga naraka. Sukha, all are synonyms. Sukha, dukkha, swarga, naraka, priyam, apriyam. These are all this can be used synonymously. You follow? Nachiketa says, I don't want a better life, Allah. For what will I do with that better life? What will I do with that better life? Kshine Punye. Isavas Upanishad has said Kshine Punye. Kshine Punye means it will reduce. Very soon it will be back to very soon you will exhaust it, and then when you exhaust it, you start all over again. You don't start from that point where you left. You have to start from. So Nachiketas tells Yama, I don't want that. What is moksha then? I want moksha. Maitreyi told Yajnavalkya in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that portion is called Maitreyi Brahmana. Same portion comes in two parts of the same Upanishad. See, you take a book, there is page number 10, and the page number 10 is repeated at page number 25 also. Exactly, it doesn't change at all. See, imagine chapter 2, and then you go to chapter 17. Verbatim chapter 2 is repeated as chapter 17. Now what does it mean? It's only chapter. Printing mistake like extra page, they have added it. One of the extraordinary portions of this Upanishad is Maitreyi Brahmana. Maitreyi Brahmana means Yajnavalkya teaching Maitreyi. Yajnavalkya was the richest householder and guru. Yajnavalkya was the richest householder and guru. And you know how he became rich. There are other portions in the same Upanishads that tells you how Yajnavalkya became extraordinarily rich. Janaka leaves 1,000 cows adorned with gold, covered with gold, and says, whoever is a Brahmavid, take it. Are you able to follow? Yeah. Brahmavid is not saying the Sunday காலையில கிளாஸ்ல பேசுற ஆளுங்க தான் கிடையாது. Brahmavidna, knower of Brahman, come and take it. Who will have the courage to go and take it? Nobody went. Yajnavalkya walked in. He looked at he turned around, and he saw one of the students standing there. Looking at the student, he says, drive these 1,000 cows to our ashram. And you know what that 1,000 cows covered with gold means? Take that cow to our ashram. And everybody is angry at Yajnavalkya, because everybody wanted it, but nobody had the courage to touch it. Because the question is what? Clear. Whoever has heard about Brahman, don't touch it. We all belong to the category of those who have Brahmana Bhakti Nariya Ketavanga Nambalam. We are all Shrotriya, but there is no Nishtha. So he says, whoever is a Brahmanishta, take it. And Yajnavalkya said, drive the cows to our ashram. Everybody got angry. And they started asking him questions. And Yajnavalkya started answering those questions. Like that, in very many places he goes, and he has collected a lot of wealth. We need to progress in life, no? And Yajnavalkya wants to say that you progress in life. What is the progression in life? Up to the second stage, we are all very excited and so worried to reach very fast. Third and fourth, we don't even want to look at it. Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. There is an age to get into Brahmacharya. You know that. And there is an age to get into Grihastha also. At Toda we want to close our eyes. We don't want to even talk about Vanaprastha and sannyasa. Yajnavalkya wanted to teach that. Yajnavalkya wanted to teach that. So what he did, he divided his wealth into two. He divided the wealth into two, called both his wives, Katyayini and Maitreyi, and says, now that I am going to take up sannyas and go, I can't leave you halfway. Keep this wealth, it will protect you. Keep this wealth, for this wealth will, na illana kuda, naam pona kuda wealth sethu vekkradhu ennathukku? Even if I die, I won't acquire wealth for my daughter. No. Why? Because that will protect. Yajnavalkya says, it will protect you. Katyayini says, thank you, and she takes that. So, ippiyadu manasallu kudukuradhu. Illana or packet milk vaangiradhu kuda, you have to be dependent on you. Now that you have given this, abba. Maitreyi asked a different question. With this wealth, can I conquer Mrityu? Will my fear go? Like Nachiketa said what Swarga is. Maitreyi says, idallam vanda idu poiduma. Are you able to follow? Nachiketa said, I don't want this directly. Maitreyi is also saying, I don't want this directly. But she puts it in a slightly different way. She says, with all these, will fear go? Fear will not. Why fear will not go? Where there is two Maitreyi, there will be fear. Duality is in the fear will go. You can't avoid that. But God kitta kuda sir. Of course yes. The law doesn't change. Where there is two, there will be fear. And Maitreyi, you want to get rid of fear, this will not help you. Get rid of the duality. And that getting rid of duality is called moksha. And that getting rid of duality is called moksha. For where there is two, there will be fear. What is the fear? Diminish ஆகாம இருக்குமா, ஆட் ஆகுமா, தொலைஞ்சு போகாம இருக்குமா, அவ்வளவுதான் fear. Are you able to follow? You are not acquired. Maitreyi tells, Yajnavalkya tells Maitreyi, you don't acquire wealth, Maitreyi, you acquire fear. In any acquisition, what do you think you are acquiring? You think you are acquiring wealth. You think you are acquiring protection. You think you are acquiring safety. What you don't understand is you are only acquiring fear. Therefore, as long as these acquisitions remain, what will remain? Fear will remain. What is the fear? What is the fear? What is the fear? First fear, varma. Will I get it? Apranda, fear of losing la apranda. Adukulla why jump to the last? First fear, varma. Nanu appeal letter கொடுத்துட்டு வெயிட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கறேன் ஒண்ணும் இல்ல வருமா. First fear, whether will it come? Second fear is common sense. இதெல்லாம் இதுக்கெல்லாம் மைத்ரேயெல்லாம் யாஜ்ஞவல்கியெல்லாம் தேவையே இல்லை. நான் டியூவல்னு ஒன்று சொல்றதுக்கு தான் we need great masters. இதெல்லாம் நம்மளே விசாரம் பண்ணி we can do our own reflection and understand. First is will I get? அன்னைக்கு ரிசல்ட்டுக்கு 4 சொன்ன மாதிரி இன்னைக்கு ஃபியருக்கு 5. ரெண்டு வாரத்துக்கு ஒரு வாட்டி ஒரு லிஸ்ட் வச்சுக்கோங்க. டசன்ட் மேக் beyond a point doesn't make any difference. First is will I get. Second is will I get it in the way that I want it. கிடைக்கும் ஆனா நான் ஒண்ணு கேட்டேன், இல்ல சார் என்னால 10 ரூபா தான் முடியும்னு கொடுத்தா வாட் வில் I got it, but then that is of fear. Second fear, will I get it? Will I get what I want? Third, வந்தது அப்படியே அது தேர்ட் ஸ்டேஜில் தான் டிமினிஷிங்லாம் வரும். டிமினிஷ் ஆகாம இருக்குமா? ஃபோர்த்து ஆடப் ஆயினே இருக்கணும். வரணும், நான் எதிர்பார்த்த மாதிரி வரணும், டிமினிஷ் ஆகக்கூடாது. அப்புறம் ஆடப் ஆயினே இருக்கணும், அப்படியே வந்துடக்கூடாது இல்லையா? இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆகும் இல்லையா? போன வருஷம் அது என்னது அப்ரைசல்ல இவ்வளவு கொடுத்தாங்க, இந்த வருஷம் அதே தான்னா இட் ஹேஸ் டு ஃபைனலி. ஐயோ இதெல்லாம் ஒரு நாளைக்கு அது இருக்கும், நான் விட்டு போயிடுவேனேன்ற ஃபியர். The house is there. The house is there. The fellow who built the house is gone. What is liberation? Liberation is liberation from the fear. What is liberation? Moksha is liberation from this fear. And if you have to be free from this fear, you need to understand the non-dual. What is the non-dual? That which is here is that which is there. Therefore, that which is lost here is gained there. That which is gained there is lost here. Therefore, in the totality there is nothing is lost, nothing is gained. What goes out? Fear goes out. But then duality comes and says it should be in this nama rupa. It should stick with this name and form. It should not go to another nama rupa kittallam pogudadu. It should stay with this name and this form. And life comes and says this name and form is ashvatalla. Therefore, whatever comes to it also will not stay put, because the nature of it is to keep moving. Changing na moving na purinjukonu. Whenever we use the word change, you have to understand it as moving from one to the other. In you itself it is moving, and it is moving from one to the other. Non-dual makes you to understand that. What is that non-dual? That which is here is that which is there. When I focus on that which is here and that which is there, which is common, fear goes out. And if I see it as dual, fear exists. Comes back alla illa. Ponadana comes back. Fear exists. What is moksha? What is liberation? Liberation is identifying with the non-dual. Everything is God's is not non-dual. Everyone is God is non-dual. Again I repeat, everything is God's is not non-dual. Everything is God, is non-dual. Every Nama Rupa doesn't belong to God. All the Nama Rupa is God. Angada duality goes. You don't say all Nama Rupa is God's. Again you have a problem. What is the problem? அது எப்படி இரண்யகசிப்பு நாம ரூபால காட் இருக்க முடியும்? அது எப்படி ராவணா நாம ரூபால காட் இருக்க முடியும்? அது எப்படி என்ன இரிட்டேட் பண்ற நெய்பர் ரூபத்துல காட் இருக்க முடியும்? எப்படி follow? In whatsoever form the parts are, what is common to both the parts? What is common to all the parts? Clay. So the non-dual factor in all the parts is clay only. Clay doesn't possess them. Clay doesn't produce them. The clay itself appears as them. Are you able to follow? The clay doesn't produce them. Even though in a very ordinary sense we say clay produced the pot. It's not that the clay produced the pot. It is not the clay is the cause and pot is the effect. The clay itself is the pot. The clay itself is the pot in a Nama Rupa, in the particular name and in a particular form. Abdina, what goes out? Non-dual goes out. So when you are doing an action and when somebody else is also doing an action, that which is common is action. Don't look at that. If you look at the action, you will get carried away by action. If you look at the action, you will get affected by the action. What is affectation by the action? When you look at the, are you able to follow what I am asking? When somebody does an action and when you get involved, when you see the action, what happens? Duality has come in. What is the duality? Good, bad, abro? Superiority, inferiority, abro? Abro? I like it, I don't like it. Success, failure. Wow. Success, failure. Abro? Gain and loss. All this doesn't create problems. All this that you are saying is in relation to the phala, to the effect of doing. I am saying before you go to the effect of doing, something affects you at the level of doing itself. What is it? At the level of doing itself, good and bad. Correct. Second is this actor is efficient, this actor is inefficient. This actor is best, this actor is worse. As doing is happening, then comes the effect. So then what happens? If you start seeing it like this, what happens? You lose your objectivity. You lose your objectivity, and this is what is known as getting involved in the action of yours and getting involved with the action of others. If you have lost objectivity, means you have got involved in the duality. What is objectivity? Understanding that there is an acting person and then there is an acting principle. Correct. Acting person utrala, acting principle paakalaana, you have transcended the. But acting principle paatha mind ku anga velaye illa. Actor paatha da இல்லையா மைண்டுக்கு வேலை எப்போ கிடைக்கும்? ஆக்டரை பார்த்தா தான் மைண்டுக்கு வேலை இல்லையா. ஆக்டிங் பிரின்சிபலை பார்த்தா மைண்ட் பிகம்ஸ் ineffective there, mind becomes redundant there, in fact mind becomes irrelevant there. And mind will not allow you to do that. Therefore it will say, acting principle, அவங்க கிளாஸ்ல அப்படிதான் பேசினிருப்பாங்க, அதெல்லாம் பார்க்க கூடாது. We should look only at the action. என்ன ஜோக்குன்னு எனக்கு புரியல. We should look at only the action. You follow? So objectivity is looking at the, refusing to look at the actor and focusing on the acting principle. In who? In you and in the other na, you have transcended the duality. This is how Karma Yoga takes you to moksha. Gahana karma no gatihi. Nature of action is deep and impenetrable, Arjuna, because as you are doing now, you can get moksha. As you are a doer, you can attain moksha. How? By focusing on the akarma. By focusing on the akarma. So karma, vikarma and karma. And the lakshana, the lakshya, the ideal of Bhagavad Gita, the ideal of any great master, the ideal of the Shastras is not Swarga, it is moksha. Even though as a byproduct, in the path, you will be in Swarga. Adada nalla irukudenu ukandita complacency has entered, the path is lost. And then you have to start all over again. And the level you compromise. Because as you progress, byproduct of the spiritual progress is Swarga. Swarga means life will be more or less alright around you. Even if worst things happens, you are not that affected, and that itself looks so satisfying, so liberating. Vedavadaratah, you are blinding darkness. Therefore they keep coming and interfering and saying, don't stagnate. What will keep the ideal alive till the end? What will keep the goal alive till the end? Till you attain that? That has to be reminded all the time. That is why every few verses he talks about the enlivening factor. And when he talks about the enlivening factor, we switch off. And whenever he talks about the Swarga, our eyes open up. இது இன்னைக்கு நல்லா இதெல்லாம் enlivening factor, petrol in the car la nariya vati. We have heard that all any number of times, and hearing all that nothing has happened. இது ஒருவேளை உங்களுக்கே தெரியாது என்னமோ. All this kind of samshaya comes in. Very important is to keep the lakshya, the ideal, the goal alive till the end. Minus the goal, it is of no. That's why even in Bhagavad Gita, even though Krishna is tempting Arjuna, if you die Arjuna, you will go to Swarga, Veera Swarga you will get. Swargadvaram apavritam. In chapter 2, verse number 34-35, he says, it's an open door, unsought for, it has come. He is tempting to get him to fight. As soon as he gets ready to fight, he says, ஞானத்தோட fight பண்ண. As soon as he is ready to act, he immediately brings in and says, fight with right knowledge. What is fighting with right knowledge means? Not for Swarga, not for a better life Allah, it is for Moksha. Bodhonya sadhane yogi sakshan mokshaika sadhanam pakasya vaksniva jnanam vina moksho na siddhyati. Na siddhyati means there is no other way you can, in no other way you can get it. In Atma Bodha, he says there is no other way you can get it. What? Sakshan mokshaika sadhanam. What is that jnanam? When you are acting, in you identify with the inactive principle, and when somebody is acting, you have transcended the duality of seer and the seen. When you do this, you have transcended the duality of the seer and the seen. So you don't say all are gods, you say all is God. You don't say all are clay, you say clay is. You don't say all are gods, you say, are you able to follow? There is a difference between saying all are God versus saying all is God. All is God, na? You are refusing to see the Nama Rupa. When you say all are gods, na? In an indirect way, you have accepted. In an indirect way, you have accepted to that. Ignorance is still there. Akarma. What is akarma? That enlivens all actions and itself remaining inactive. What is that called? The Upanishad gives it a name called Chetana, consciousness, that enlivening principle. What is that enlivening principle? Prajnanam Brahma. That is the first of our Prajnanam Brahma. Even while it causes action, by itself it doesn't act. Why by itself it doesn't act? It doesn't have any reason to act. It doesn't have any cause to act. It doesn't have any motive to act. What motive does the clay have to turn into pot? It cooperates. Are you able to follow? What motive the clay has to turn into pot? We have to help humanity to quench their thirst, for them to hold water, so that they will think of me and worship me. Does clay have any of these ideas? And yet, without that clay, the pot is not. It allows it to go through that Nama Rupa, but remain unaffected by that Nama Rupa. That is the inactive. And in action, Arjuna, actionly idella irukku. In actionly, as you are acting, you should be able to understand all this. Your actions are backed by jnanam. Jnana karma. First is karma. Karma means ordinary action, just action. Then comes karma yoga. கர்மாங்கிறது எப்ப கர்ம யோகமா மாறும்? பக்திங்கிறது எப்ப பக்தி யோகமா மாறும்? only when நிஷ்காமா enters. கர்மால நிஷ்காமா வந்தாதான் கர்ம யோகா. able to follow? When karma is done with kama, it becomes kamya karma. It doesn't become karma. It doesn't become karma yoga. Similarly, when does bhakti turn into bhakti yoga? So when bhakti is also done with nishkama, for what reason are you showing devotion? There is no reason. Appadam bhakti turns into bhakti yoga. If I bring in a reason to it, what is the reason? Then only God will protect me, or it is my duty to worship. Idallam kediyadu. Bhakti turns into bhakti yoga when nishkama enters. Karma turns into karma yoga only when nishkama enters. Now this nishkama is the aspect of jnana. That is where jnana karma. Are you able to follow? Only it is jnanam that comes and says, remove the kama. Even when they talk about bhakti, in the highest form of bhakti, they say nishkama bhakti. What is nishkama bhakti? You ask the devotee, why are you devoted to God? He says, I don't know. Yeah. Why are you acting? Meera illa class line, we can give this example. If you go and ask the rose, why are you giving fragrance? It will turn back and say, why are you giving fragrance? I don't know. That's what I ought to do. What else is there that I could possibly do? Appada. Understand the sequence. First is karma, then karma turns into karma yoga. When does karma turns into karma yoga? All actions are not karma yoga. Nishkama. With kama, with desire. If you do it with desire, the pala is swarga or naraka. So nishkama only makes karma into karma yoga. Similarly, bhakti turns into bhakti yoga. All those who go to temple are not practicing bhakti yoga. Similarly, all those who are acting are not doing karma yoga. Similarly, all those who are going to temple are not practicing bhakti yoga, because what is the determining factor? Nishkama. And what is that nishkama belongs to? That nishkama belongs to jnana. So that is why 4th chapter, jnana karma. Jnana karma. So it is jnanam that comes and says, get rid of your kama and do. It is jnanam that comes and says, get rid of your kama and worship. It doesn't say don't worship. It says get rid of the kama for worshipping. Because kama means desire. Desire means correct. Desire no motive. Desire and motive are one and the same. They are not different. Desire means motive. What is the motive? Some motive, whatever be it. But there is a motive. That is why when they talk about the bhaktas, they don't say so many devotees that we think as great devotees. They don't give their names as examples. They say the Vrajas, the gopis. Why the gopis? They asked, why do you worship Krishna? Why are you loving Krishna? The answer is, I don't know. All foolish are there. They have transcended. See, when they say, I don't know, from one angle it may look very, very foolish. Then a foolish bhakti are there. Jnanam comes and says, Adampa highest bhakti. So it is jnanam that comes and says that is nishkama. Kama has a meaning. Kama has a motive. What is the motive? The motive of why. You ask why, and if you are able to give an answer to that, kama has entered. You ask why, and you say, I don't know na niskama. But ரொம்ப foolish-ஆ இருக்கு. I don't know னு சொல்லி பண்றது looks very foolish, no? All along you have been thinking you know what you are doing, that is foolish. I don't know னு சொல்லி பண்றது according to Vedanta, take it or leave it. அது நம்மளோட சாய்ஸ். We may agree, we may not agree. That is our freedom. But according to them, all along you think you know what you want and you are doing it. The follow human intellect, the topic. Nobody knows what they want, what they are asking for. They don't know what they are asking for. And yet, I tell you, how many times in a day I read this paragraph, I know. Not only. The title is nobody knows what they want. I said nobody la I put first. I put my name there. I put my name there and I started analyzing. How is it that with such a conviction he is saying? But then when I went there, I knew what I want. When I am doing this, it seems to be very clear as to I know what I want. Abdina, what is jnanam? I know nu சொல்றது ஞானம் இல்ல. இதெல்லாம் அக்சென்ச்சர்ல பிராக்டிஸ் பண்ண முடியாது. உள்ளுக்குள்ள பிராக்டிஸ் பண்ணலாம், அவ்வளவுதான். அங்க போய் பிராக்டிஸ் பண்ண முடியுமா? அங்க என்னாச்சு சார் உங்களுக்கு இவ்வளவு நாள் நல்லா தானே இருந்தேன், ஒழுங்கா மேரத்தானே ஓடி இருந்திருக்கலாம். கிளாஸ்ல எல்லாம் வந்து டோன்ட் வேஸ்ட் யுவர் டைம், ஸ்டார்ட் கீப் ரன்னிங் யுவர் மேரத்தான் ரேசஸ், அதுவே நல்லா தான் இருந்தேன். நீங்க இவ்வளவு வாட் இஸ் jnanam? Niskama. Niskama means there is no motive for doing and you continue to do. Why? Another obligation. Obligation is not a reason. Please understand that. Don't misunderstand obligation as a reason. Obligation means you ought to do and you don't know. Why you are doing it, what is in store, nothing. இந்த மாதிரி பண்ணா என்ன ஆகும்? சீக்கிரமே பைத்தியம் முடிச்சிடும் இல்லையா? தெளிவாக இருக்கிறோம். இந்த மாதிரி பண்ணா சீக்கிரமே will go mad. Correct. உன்மத்த வத்தெல்லாம் ஆக மாட்டோம். We will become unmatta only. Jnana from the non-dual, from the dual to non-dual, from the dual to very difficult is to explain this. Very difficult is to communicate how the shift from non-dual is jnana. Yeah. Otherwise you always think jnanam is dual. What does duality means? I started by saying 1 hour. I went one full circle and coming back to that point. What is dual? What is duality? Raga Dvesha. Correct. And also he says elsewhere in Vedanta treatise, he writes, the entire philosophy of Vedanta revolves around these two words. What are the two words? Raga and Dvesha. Because this is having such a vicious grip. எப்படியாவது எஸ்கேப் ஆகலான்னு போனா it comes and takes over. Dahana karmano gatihi. The nature of action is deep, impenetrable. 18 padinga.
Karmanya karmaya pashyet akarmani cha karmaya सबुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु सयुक्तः कृष्णकर्मकृत् कर्मण्यकर्म यः पश्येत् अकर्मणि च कर्म यः सबुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु सयुक्तः कृष्णकर्मकृत्.
He who sees inaction in action and action in inaction, he is wise among men. He is a yogi, a doer of all actions. Krishna karma krit. He is the doer of all actions. I am the doer. He is concluding by saying he is the doer of all actions. What is it? Karmani akarma. Akarmani karma. He who sees inaction in action and action in inaction. He is wise. Not only he is wise, he is a yogi. He is a yukta. Yogi is one who has attained the yoga. One who has attained yoga is a yukta. He has attained it. Krishna karma krit, a doer of all actions. Continuation of akarma. Whatever he discussed in the previous verse as akarma, he is continuing the discussion of akarma into this verse. Human perfection in terms of action. What is human perfection in terms of action? Objectivity. Sakshi bhava. Sakshi is a bhava. Sakshi is not a karma. Sakshi is a bhava. Karma is the doing. Sakshi is the bhava. Bhava means attitude. So objectivity is an objectivity is an attitude. What is that attitude of objectivity? He who sees inaction in action. When he sees Brahman, he sees how the Brahman has turned into very many actions, and when he sees very many actions, he understands the Brahman. Whoever is able to see this, he is practicing objectivity. Sakshi bhava. He is practicing objectivity. What is objectivity? Segregating the doer to the doing principle. The doer is the equipment, and I have nothing to do with the doing. Because I have nothing to do with you have nothing to do with the doing only when you have nothing to do with the equipment. As long as you have an identity with the equipment, you can never claim, you can never practice Sakshi Bhava. Again I repeat, objectivity is in relation to objectivity, Sakshi Bhava, you can practice only when you do not identify with the equipments. As long as your identity is with the equipment, you will say, I am the doer only. You can never practice objectivity. What is objectivity? The instrument does what they ought to do, and I have nothing to do with it. That is why inaction in action and action in inaction. ஏதாவது ஒன்று மட்டும் சொல்லியிருந்தா it becomes, it's easy to understand but misleading completely. So inaction in action எல்லாரும் வேலை பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம், நான் சும்மா உட்கார்ந்து இருக்கிறேன். So it is wrong again. Again if he says action in inaction is also wrong. So he says both. What is it? Actions are done by the respective equipments. And why they do those respective actions? What drives them to do those respective actions those instruments are doing? Because of raga and dvesha. Because of this raga and dvesha, because of these likes and dislikes they have, they continue to do what they are doing. Let them continue to do what they are doing, and I have nothing to do with it. In Isavasi Upanishad, he takes the objectivity to the ultimate. Even as death is happening, he says, even as he is dying, the dying person says, the elements are going back to the elements. He has taken objectivity to highest level. Adhikku mela, how can you describe objectivity? As he is dying, it is not somebody is dead and we are saying elements have gone back. The dying person is saying, the dying person is not dying unconsciously. The dying person is not saying, I don't want to die, and he is dying. What is happening to him? Objectivity to the whole. The dying person is saying, the elements are going back to the elements, and the elements going back to the elements have no effect on me. You can say that at the death point only when you can say it now. When you are involved now, you can never say it. Yeah, that's why they say, the Yoga Shastra says, they die with some pain in the face, or they die with the fist. They die with the fist clenched. All that is an indicator that they don't want to go, but then they are adan yama. I don't want to go. Parvalla pannu utittu, he doesn't leave you and go. Whether you want or not, he will drag you from the body which you have identified with. He will forcefully separate you from the body which you have identified with, all along saying, my body. My body சொன்னதுனால தான் சுத்தி இருக்கிறதெல்லாம் meaningful. If you say not this body, everything that is associated with the body becomes meaningless straight away. That is why they say, anga, don't get detached from everything outside. That is impossible. Say, I have nothing to do with this. Whatever this is associated with, by default, automatically goes. Isavasi Upanishad takes the objectivity to the highest level. So the dying person says, the elements are going back to the elements. And from where you come, you have to go now. See, we all came from our respective houses. 8:45 ki mudichanna. Supposing if I don't finish na kuda doesn't. So whatever way, ultimately where will you go? Where did this body came from? Elements. So elements lendu vandadu, going back to elements. What is there to worry? What are you fearing? What is there to worry? One that from where it has come, it has to go back. Putchu vechikalam inga. For how long? For how long? At least na irukra varaikuma. We don't know. Life is that which we don't know why we came in. Life is that which we don't know what we are doing. Life is that which says where you don't know where we go. In the ignorance maya it is full of nothing in life is clear. Nothing in life is clear. But the ignorant man believes everything is very clear. I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I don't want. I know what I should plan. I know what I should get. I know what I shouldn't get. I know what I want. I know what I don't want. The best laid plans of men and mice gang off ugly, he says. The best laid plans of men and mice gang off ugly. Gang off ugly in a split second. Before you know what happened, it's gone. Not to come back again. You can't. For it is gone. And there is no point grieving over that. There is no point fearing that it will go. Because the nature of that is that is its nature. That is its nature. That is the nature. What is practicing of objectivity? Knowing this, you become objective. And you say, the equipments are doing their respective jobs, and I have nothing to do with it. Who's that I? Right now you don't know. Ego lende disconnect aayache. You are forcefully separating yourself from the ego. That is why separating yourself from the ego, the spiritual practices, the karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga is more painful than yama forcefully separating. In the pain persa, and the pain persana, this pain is more, but you have to go through that pain. Why? Because yama becomes your slave after that. You can have a dialogue with Yama, and Yama will prostrate to you. You know that, no? This Kathopanishad, this extraordinary Upanishad, because the Guru prostrated to, do you know that? Yama prostrates to Nachiketas. I am prostrating to you, Nachiketas. Pranipatena, Pariprashnena, Sevayallam, we have heard the disciple doing. Where do you hear the Guru doing it? In Kathopanishad, the Guru does it. I am prostrating to you, educators. Why? All along I have seen people resisting me. Now, vandale? I have seen people resisting me. You came and waited for me. Look at that boy's courage. Are you able to follow? Look at that boy's courage. He goes there and waited for Yama to come. Because Yama is not there for 3 days. 3 days he is not there. Abbada Illapani he doesn't escape opportunity. He didn't come back. He stood there waiting for Yama. What a boy. Objectivity. Waiting. Not that he was waiting for death. Waiting to ask this question. Waiting to ask this question. Are you able to follow objectivity? What is objectivity? That which lends light but unaffected by that which it lights. That's Sakshi. That which it lights but unaffected by what it lights. That is called Sakshi Bhava. Definition Gurilanna Vidyaranya. Vidyaranya came and gave a beautiful definition. Nataka Deepa Prakarana. Light on the stage. The light on the stage lights everything that is happening on the stage, but by itself is not affected by whatever it lights. That's why he says, marriage procession, not jumping with joy. Funeral procession, winking with sorrow. This marriage and death is kamya. All part and parcel of raga and dvesha. He is a yogi, he is a wise man. Who is a yogi? Who is a wise man? One who can practice this. One who can practice this objectivity. When will you be able to practice objectivity? When you have the right jnanam. What is the right jnanam? Equipment does the action. Because of them doing the action, they will be exposed to the consequences of it. I have nothing to do with it. Okay, while living all that is fine. Upon death, what will you do? Elements go back to elements. Angaguda there is nothing is. He is a yogi. He is a doer of all actions. Krishna karma krit. He is a doer of all actions. He is a doer of all actions means in every action he understands that he is there, and yet he understands he is not there. He is doing, at the same time he is not doing. Who are you? Doing and not doing. Doer or non-doer. Abdi சொல்ல முடியாது. Sakshi Bhava says, I am doing and not doing. When he talks like this only, Arjuna gets confused. When he talks like this only, Arjuna says, Mati pesakudadu. Vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasi vame. Vyamishreneva means perplexing speech. What is perplexing? Not inspiring talk. Mati pesinarna, I am getting utterly confused. Say it clearly. Rekam vadanistitya. 50th chapter is going to ask the same question. He is saying, you are the doer, at the same time not the doer. I don't do anything and yet I do everything. இதுதான் சார் இந்த வேதாந்தா கிளாஸ் எல்லாம் வரக்கூடாதுன்றது இதுக்குதான். அவங்களும் தெளிவா இருக்க மாட்டாங்க, தெளிவா இருக்கிறவங்களும் இது கன்ஃபியூஸ். Objectivity is that. What is it? You practice Sakshi, in the ultimate sense, you become the Sakshi. He is a yogi, he is the doer of all actions. What makes him the doer of all actions? He has understood these two. What are the two? Action in action, inaction in action. And illa in andna rendu separate ah irukku. Duality kedaiyadanga. In the same he sees both. That is practicing objectivity. He is a yogi, he is a wise person. Yes, I'll come. Yeah, you come. By 11:30? Between 11:30 and 12 on by 11 o'clock I'll finish.
11 o'clock.
Anyway, between 11:30 and 12 I'll Kartala on